Hi, and welcome to The Curling Show, the podcast that brings you interviews with the sport's top athletes and the people who shape the game. Brought to you by Fit to Curl, a sport-specific guide to training for the world's greatest game by 2010 Olympic gold medalist and Team Martin third, John Morris, with some assistance from me, Dean Gemmell. If you're thinking about a New Year's resolution that involves an approach to fitness that will help your curling game, then you'll want to get a copy at your favorite pro shop or at fittocurl.com. He's the host of Charlottetown's Compass Evening News program and the voice of the Capital One Grand Slam of Curling on CBC. Bruce Rainnie, welcome back to The Curling Show.
Dean, a pleasure. I had such a great time. I think it was maybe 18 months ago when you and I did this that I'm thrilled to ask me back. We'll have some fun here.
Well, yeah, I think it's been about that long, and the interesting thing is that some of the things that we discussed, including finding ways to give each Capital One Grand Slam its own unique identity, are starting to be explored. This weekend at the BDO Canadian Open in Kingston, we're going to hopefully see the 5-rock rule tried. Now, I know you never try to pass yourself off as the expert in the booth when it comes to thinking your way through an end in a curling game, but what do you think this rule could do?
Well, I hope it's very positive for the sport and for the games and for the especially offensive aspect of the games. And I hope that if a team is down late by, say, 3 or 4, that they're not totally out of it as they often are against a team like Martin or Howard. All of this being said, Dean, I was in contact with Mike Harris yesterday. I'm not sure that this is a 100% done deal because I understand that the Canadian Curling Association wants all 16 teams in Kingston to sign off on this and make sure it's okay with them. And even if one team says no and it's not unanimous, then they won't award any CTRS points if the event goes ahead with the 5-rock rule. So in essence, they'll have to scrap it. So I'm hoping to heck that it does go ahead for the reason you mentioned off the top, and that being that the one thing these slams I think need more than anything else is a way to just distinguish themselves a bit, much like, the slams in golf. You know that the Masters will be at Augusta, the U.S. Open will be the toughest course players ever play, the British Open's going to have a lot of wind, and the PGA is the last one of the year, the one that's sort of least descript and by association the one that's least popular. So whatever they could do to inject some individualism to these events and some identity, I'd love to see. We've spoken in the past about, maybe if not a winner-take-all, a winner-take-most event. That would be fun.
Yeah, I do think that the individual identity for each is critical, and I think they're moving towards that from my discussions. I'm interested in this notion that, and I understand, I knew this going in, that one team could actually scuttle the 5-rock rule at this event. I don't know if I'd want to be that team, but it would be interesting if there is a team that says no. There are some teams that it has been hinted that they wouldn't favor it by the style of play they favor. So it'll be interesting to hear what happens with that.
Well, it will, and as we tape this now, I'm not sure what's going to happen on Friday, Saturday. Obviously, the event starts tomorrow, so whether the voting's taking place right now, I hope that when I arrive on site that we're in the midst of some very exciting curling that features for the first time this 5-rock rule, and maybe we see, maybe there's no difference whatsoever. I remember when they changed the rules in hockey, everybody thought there'd be scores like 12, 10, 13, 11, and really scoring's gone up maybe half a goal a game. Maybe there won't be much, but maybe there will, and maybe teams down late, it won't be totally out of a game, and that in itself is reason to watch to the very end. So I hope it's there. Well,
yeah, I mean, there's that moment in the game when a team is going to go out and whack the corner guard, typically, and they won't be able to. That's when it'll be interesting. And I'm not, I think teams are going to have to think a few rocks before that, because the typical thing would be to hit the corner guard when you're up by a bunch and you don't have the last rock, and you eventually make a double peel or something. That's not going to be available on the 5th rock. So I think it will be interesting to see what happens. One thing I like is there's talk of perhaps winnowing fields throughout the Capital One Grand Slam, and we talked about this winner-take-all or winner-take-most thing. I think the big thing is some more consequences to each game and to each final. And if there was a way that the fields got tighter as the season went on, I think that's a good direction. And I've heard rumors that we might be seeing that in the future.
Well, I know for a fact that you talk about tighter fields. The Players' Championship, which is coming to Summerside PEI in April, and it's, by the way, if you're planning on attending that, it's now a week later than originally scheduled because of conflicts with hockey playoffs. But that's 8 teams on the men's side, 8 teams on the women's side. That's a pretty tight little field. They're going to play a round robin and qualify on through to the quarters, semis, and finals. So, Yeah, a tighter field, just anything to make them different, I think, would be just absolutely great, so that you know every year, oh yeah, the Canadian Open, that's the one that has X, and oh yeah, the World Cup, that's the one that has Y. I got to watch that to see how that comes into play this year. That would be just great stuff.
Even in the preliminary games in the Slam, I think one thing, and I'll make sure people know it now, is that each game's worth $1,000. It might be more, I think, coming in the future, but it's not big money when you think about golf. But for guys who've traveled to the event and everything else, $1,000 is $1,000. The last one in Sault Ste. Marie, Rob Schlender at 0-4 playing Mike McEwen at 4-0. If Schlender loses, he goes home with nothing, and actually has to write a check, I think, for his entry. So ends up winning the game and at least breaks even. So I think that stuff is important and something that we need to promote a bit.
Yeah, and you talk about money. How about come the end of the season, this Capital One Cup has injected some of these shots are for huge money at the end of the season. Kevin Martin's taken home a ton of dough the last couple of years by winning that final Players' Championship. So that's an aspect that's certainly worth, as you say, harping on, making sure people know the significance of this upcoming draw, this upcoming hit, this upcoming whatever. It's all part of selling this sport.
An interesting start to the season. If we talk, you got a young team like John Epping, makes it to the final of the GP Car and Home World Cup of Curling, but then the Capital One Canada Cup final, a CCA event, is, Martin Howard. When you first started broadcasting this sport, did you have any idea how durable talents like Martin, Howard, Stoughton would prove to be?
Kind of. I remember the very first panel they ever sat me down to do, it was with Kevin Martin, Glenn Howard, Jeff Stoughton, and Wayne Madaw, who was skipping. And you could sit those same four guys down now. I've been doing this for 5 years. Sit them down 5 years later, and they're still four of the marquee names in the sport.
Right.
We've been waiting for a long time for that next wave, and I think the next wave finally is getting close. But Mike and I have talked about this a bit too. When it's a really, really big game, and you talk about a Canada Cup or you talk about the final of the first Grand Slam of the year, it seems that the guys like, certainly Martin and certainly Howard and to a degree Stoughton as well, to a large degree, these guys have that reserve or that mental bank to go to find their way, to think their way through a key end and make a key strategic call or a key placement of a rock. And maybe that's ultimately what separates these young guys who are scraping and clawing from the guys that have established them. There's a reason why we talk about these guys in some cases for 2 decades. They're just great at what they do, and they remain hungry, and they still love it, and they live for it, and it's what they do better than anybody on the planet, and they don't want to let it go.
I think you're right. It does come down to some mental gymnastics too, though. I mean, you go to a Grand Slam, and you look out on the ice, and every guy out there throws it really well. But a number of these teams are making 3, 4 more half shots a game, and winning as a result.
Interesting you say that, because I remember the first 3 or 4 Grand Slams we did, Mike McEwen was a perennial maker to the quarterfinal,
right,
and maybe semifinal, right? And he would perpetually run into Howard or Martin on our Saturday night show. And the games would be close for 2 or 3 ends, and then the old guys would find a way. Now, last year, McEwen started to find a way, and at the start of this year, he was finding his way again, and I think that team's too good to not find their way eventually. It's just, the peak of this sport, it's hard to climb there, and the guys that are up there, they don't want to come down. Yeah,
and that said, I think, Mike McEwen's team, they were looking so good early in the season, but I actually think they need a good event this week.
Agreed, and by the way, I love this Epping team, too. I thought their front end, David Mathers, I was almost always going to call him Jerry Mathers because he looked like Leave It to Beaver.
Well, he looks about 12, yeah.
I love that guy, though, and I remember Mark Kennedy muttering under his breath, this guy makes shots. He makes every shot. And Scott Howard, who I really enjoyed on your podcast as well, he was great. And how good is Scott Bailey to be able to, after a career of being a sort of a front-end guy, slip to that third position and take some of the stress off his back and not sweep as much, but still throw key shots for Epping. And Epping's demeanor, you want to talk about just quintessential Skip demeanor. This guy, he makes his teammates feel good. He brings them into group discussions regarding strategy and line calls, and I really liked him as a skip. So hopefully that team has a great upside as well.
Well, I think they do, although the reality of curling, the harsh reality, is that they lost in their Ontario zones last weekend, which is, it's a crazy sport.
It is, and the other reality is to come out of Ontario, you have to beat a team that's made it to 6 Brier finals, and now has Wayne Middaugh as its third. So good luck, guys.
You know, the other guy I'm interested to see how he fares and how his team fares is Tom Brewster. I haven't seen him in a Capital One Grand Slam in quite a while.
No, nor have we. That's a name I'm trying to rack my memory here. We've seen him a lot, I think, in tie breaks and the like, but as far as making it to our featured programming on the weekend, I don't think we've ever seen Tom. And that just goes back to the point. These same teams are the ones that find their way to win those money games and get to the TV games on the weekend. Well,
I think it's a big adjustment for a team like Brewster when they play on the ice that Mark Shurik creates. It's even different than the ice that they played on in the final of the World Championship last year against Jeff Stoughton. It just I think David Murdoch's a special talent as a curler, but I know he never seems real comfortable on it, and it is a different surface.
It is, and it's interesting though that of the guys Nicholas Edin seems to have figured it out.
Yeah, and I talked to him about that they really have to work at figuring it out. They actually have to really groove their game to adjust to it, and I think they have figured it out over the years. But it took them a while too. And I just I'll be surprised if Brewster's rink does well this weekend. But I've been surprised by other teams this year too. So we'll see what happens.
That adjustment you mentioned, I heard young Brett Gallant from PEI on your program last week, and he talked about, skipping at the mixed and skipping at the event he won, and just so many places in the world just don't have the ice you're going to see at a slam, and that's certainly the case in most parts of Eastern Canada and Europe. And for these guys to go in, adjust, and kind of figure it out on the fly, that's a really tough task.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exciting that they have to try to do that, but it is tough. Hey, do you think fans tune in to see players or events or both when it comes to curling?
That's the age-old question. And when we pick our matchups on CBC, we really try to get a name in there. And I think these guys, because the microphone has done so much for this sport, and because of it, I think that the fans kind of know the personalities of the guys, and they know that the Howard team, especially during the Richard Hart era, you could hear 2 or 3 one-liners that would make Carson or Letterman envious during a game. They know the Martin team has a chance. If those guys get going south, they can be a bit persnickety. That's a favorite word of ours on the East Coast. They can get at each other. It's just so much fun. So we try to get teams where the personalities are well known to people. And I think ultimately, if you're flipping around and you see that familiar face come up, and you, I guess, even hear that familiar voice, there's a chance you'll stop in and watch some of the best curling in the world.
Yeah, I tend to think the best matchup for your coverage is like Howard Epping. I mean, it's an old name and a new name. I think is the dream matchup for you guys.
Totally agree, and that's why you have seen so many times. If that matchup is out there for a Saturday afternoon quarterfinal, where it's like I remember before McEwen was the household name, it was so much fun to have McEwen Martin or McEwen Howard, and I agree with you. I loved that Howard Epping final. It was really well played. There was a lot of respect on the ice, and it was so much fun to see an up-and-comer.
Hey, when you started with CBC and the curling coverage, you covered the CCA Season of Champions events. How disappointed are you that the CCA is locked with TSN until it appears to be about 2020?
Well, capital D. It's capital D disappointment. It's a tough one. And what I don't understand, and don't take this as sour grapes, because I think TSN does a phenomenally good job. I think they're just great. They've got it down to a science, and they're well liked across this country, and deservedly so. They wouldn't be if their product was lousy. But when you look at sports in your country like football, that's the gold standard right now, and it pays for them to be on every network. They're on Fox, they're on NBC, they're on ESPN, they're on CBS. Same to an extent with the NBA, same with Major League Baseball, and same with the NHL. And it's just so valuable, I think, for a sport to have not only that coverage, but to have networks kind of scrapping to get that coverage. It benefits everybody. And to lock yourself in for that long, kudos to TSN, and the CCA wouldn't have done it if they didn't love their product, and they should love their product. But as a business model, and I'm no accountant, but it doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of deals that stretch that long in media, but I think TSN's coverage has improved dramatically in the last few years. But I do get concerned about a deal that goes that long, and there's some good parts of it. The RDS part is good. I think, one thing I think, though, that we do in curling is we actually undersell the value of the media property a bit. I don't think even as curling bodies and groups, we recognize the value enough. I mean, if you look at TSN's numbers, I mean, about the only thing that beats it is a Leafs broadcast.
Totally. And it was the only thing that beat our final Brier, which was 2008 in Winnipeg. It was Howard and Martin on a Sunday night.
Right.
I think it got 1,000,004 or 1,000,005, and those are Toronto Maple Leaf numbers. I mean, huge numbers. And I say disappointing because obviously, being part of our coverage, I'm really proud of it. And I personally feel, Dean, that when we come on the air with Scott Russell, who I think is as good a sports host as there is anywhere in North America, when you come on the air with him, when you have Mike Harris in the booth, who is Kreskin-like in his clairvoyance, and so beautifully understated and so clear, and you have Joan, who could analyze chemistry on the ice. It's a good product, and I wish now, obviously, I'm proud of it, and I wish more people could see it. And if this sounds like sour grapes, it isn't, because I understand it's business. I'm proud of what we do, and I think it's a good job that we do, and I wish more people could see it on the Brier and now Scotty and World Championship stage.
Well, I think those are good points. I think, to be fair, I think both networks are doing a good job right now in their curling coverage. And but I do like your broadcast. I've said that before. I like the way it goes. I think Scott Russell needs a haircut, though.
Well, you know what? He took a bit of heat there back in Sault Ste. Marie. He stunned us a bit when he came on the air. But I'm sure he'll be closely cropped come the Kingston final Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I got some tweets about that, actually. It was from people. So anyways, there you go. Who knows it? I didn't actually really notice till someone tweeted me. But anyways, hey, how about the final Capital One Grand Slam of the year, the GP Carn Home Players Championship? We touched on a little bit already. It's going to be in Summerside, PEI. I guess you're looking forward to getting to an event without getting on a plane. And do you think PEI will turn out for it?
Yeah, no question. It's going to be a 41-minute drive for me from Charlottetown to Summerside. And I can recall last year in the Kelowna airport, a couple of the Grand Slam staff and I were just kind of talking and killing time before a flight. And one of the women asked me, these smaller markets, do you know one that would really work for our final event of the year? Because we have tried it in, I guess, Grand Prairie and the like, and Dawson Creek. And I said, why don't you look at Summerside PEI? They got a beautiful, I'm talking just a gorgeous new facility called Credit Union Place. It's a spectacular wellness center with a beautiful surface, seats about 3,500 to 4,000. Elton John just played there, by the way, as did Jerry Seinfeld. It's a great spot. Summerside's a really good sports town. And I think, in Prince Edward Island, it's not often that we get to see Kevin Martin and John Morris and Kennedy and Ebert and Howard and the like. And Kevin actually told me he's never been to PEI, so he's going to bring everybody out, his family, his mom, his dad, just everybody, kids, and enjoy the week. So I think it's not just going to be PEI. I think people will come across Confederation Bridge from both New Brunswick and Nova Scotia for a chance to see this Players' Championship, which is such a good event. Well,
it'll be good to see a good turnout there. And I think that, I think a 3,500-seat arena is perfect for the event. And I think... I think right now that obviously these Grand Slams do better in smaller markets, and moving them around is a good idea. So I'm glad to see they're out there. Finally, Bruce, you're not just a sports guy; you're a news anchor too. So enough about curling for a minute. Give me your Prince Edward Island take on the madness of American politics right now, including your thoughts on the field seeking the Republican nomination.
Well, it's fun to watch, and the front runner changes almost by, I guess, the day. Herman Cain was entertaining from start to finish, and now it looks like a Romney-Gingrich race to the finish, and debates are going to be important. And does either of them have enough to unseat Obama? And would you have ever thought a scant 3.5 years ago that potentially unseating him was even something you could discuss? American politics from the distance I have is so eminently entertaining. I just love it. And the next year is going to be, I don't know if fun's the right word. It's going to be tremendous excitement in your country.
It is fascinating. As a guy who was born and raised in Canada, but has lived most of my adult life in the United States, I do find it endlessly fascinating, American politics. I watch a show, Morning Joe on MSNBC, which you probably don't. I don't know if you'd see up there or not, but boy, they tackling this Republican field every day is interesting. But it's just. I don't know. I keep waiting to like somebody said I saw on a show. They said they thought somebody would come out and say we've been punked by this field, right? And there's going to be somebody else come out, but so far it hasn't happened. I can't believe it, to be honest, some of the debates and everything else. But whatever. We'll see what happens. I know you can't go too far one way or another, so I'm not going to ask for your opinions, but it should be an interesting election.
Well, we went through a provincial election up here recently, which was fascinating too. And there's a young premier here by the name of Robert Giz. He's Canada's youngest premier at age 37, and it's interesting because he's a guy too. If you want to draw sort of a really strained comparison, he was kind of like your Obama. I think he was probably in a way beatable this time around, but the other party just didn't have that right person at the helm, I don't think. And so there is a parallel to be drawn, and that leader, man, it's so important. So
what's up with politics as a family business? I mean, his father's Joe Giz, right? Former premier.
Yeah, well, oh man, yeah, Joe Giz would be the most probably famous premier in the province's history. 86 to 93, he died at age 51 of colon cancer complications, but Robert is now into his second term, and he's a nice young guy. There
you go. It's just funny how I guess it's like anything else. Unfortunately, it becomes a business, and families go into it. But it probably works out all right sometimes. All right, Bruce. Enough about politics. I'm probably in over my head here. So
me too, by the way.
Yeah, I'll get to the run back. All right, and I'll give you your thought. I'll give you a topic, and you'll give me your thoughts in 1 to 3 words, or longer, as we all know.
Yeah, unlikely to be 1 to 3, but let's give it a shot.
All right. The canceled season of the Liverpool Curling Club in Nova Scotia.
Never like hearing stuff like that. I got a lot of buddies in Liverpool, and they got some work to do.
Too bad to hear. The return of curling to Corner Brook, Newfoundland.
Exact opposite of what I just said. That's a good news story, and I'd like to hear more of it here in Atlantic, Canada.
Yeah, it's good to see that club open. How about coping with the new stricter regulations for tanning salons in Prince Edward Island? What are you going to do about that, Bruce?
Well, Dean, I'm of Scottish and Scandinavian descent, so I'm as far away from them as I can be. I'll take a pass on that one.
You're not in there, are you? You're not not even a spray-on tan for you, is it?
Listen, Scott Russell is the model presence on our broadcast. I'm just the guy in the booth.
How about fake Kevin Martin on Twitter?
You know what? Whoever is doing that, they're not always politically correct, but most of the times they're pretty funny. Whoever's doing it has a good insight, and I check in there every day. I don't know if I'm embarrassed to admit that, but I'll tell you, I do.
Oh, you can't be embarrassed. You're right. It's not always politically correct. It's not always stuff you want to repeat, but it's good stuff. And I don't know who's doing all of them. I mean, there's a bunch, and I imagine somebody's doing a few of them, and then there's some other people. You can sort of tell who's good and who isn't. But I'm amazed a little bit that I haven't been able to figure out who it is.
You know what? And there are some that actually, as the kids like to say, there are some LOL ones.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh man, they just, I sometimes can't wait to flip on my computer in the morning and see what fake Kevin has to say.
Yeah, now there's a fake Amy Nixon out there. There's a fake Pete Fenson of somebody in the United States, but whatever. All right, how about the future of Delta's New York to Charlottetown direct flight?
I hope it's good. The more flights out of here, the only drawback of living on PEI, it's a beautiful province, but it's sometimes hard to get back to and get out of, and so the more of those, the better.
Yeah, I actually looked at flying up to the Scotties last year from down here, and it was I couldn't really get there direct. I mean, I could have flown, taken the bridge, whatever, but it was a bit of a deterrent, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's in the winter too, it gets especially tough. And if you happen to miss a connection home to PEI, oh man, it's a long wait somewhere in an airport. It's just sometimes hard to get back here, but that does. Let the pros outweigh the cons, believe me.
All right, and finally, the induction of Colleen Jones and her team into the Nova Scotia Sports Hall of Fame. I think an event you emceed.
It was their first year of eligibility. They were unanimous. They are far and away, as you would sort of expect, the greatest team in Nova Scotia sport history. And it was a fun night. They were all in a really good mood. Colleen was funny as heck, and it's not long overdue. It was their first year. I think what's going to be long overdue, every year they don't get inducted into the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame is 1 year too long, because this is one of the great teams of all time, and they introduced so many things to the game, the most prominent being, I think, the aspect of sports psychology with Ken Bagnall. So pioneers and a great record, and how do you beat them?
Yeah, it's good to hear that they're in there. They might be part of the reason for free guard zone and 5 Rock rules too, though. But I'm glad they're in there. They're a quality bunch of people. And
yeah, they did like to hit a little bit.
Yeah, so just to be honest. Hey Bruce, you've given a plug for that team in the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame, but I usually give teams a chance to name their sponsors. I'm not going to let you do that, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to mention before the broadcast this weekend.
Well, we're on this Saturday afternoon, as you know, on the main CBC network. On Saturday night, we're on the Bold CBC network, and then Sunday afternoon, main CBC network for the final, and we're hoping it's a good one. And got a good team there. Mike and John are in fine form, and we'll have a couple of $1 million draws to the button. So, yeah, tune in. It's going to be a good weekend of curling.
All right, Bruce, I'm going to make my way up there myself, so hopefully I'll see you. Take care.
Good, Dean. Pleasure. See you soon.
That's Bruce Rainnie on The Curling Show. Remember to follow me on Twitter. I'm at Dean Gemmell with a cap D and a cap G, no spaces, and I'll be at the BDO Canadian Open by Friday afternoon. And if you want to feel better on the ice in the new year, get on a workout program from Fit to Curl by John Morris. Available at fittocurl.com and at Better Pro Shops. Thanks for listening. Enjoy some holiday pudding.